going to be sponsoring Ed Grimsley's Skywatch, October 29, 2011, from 5 p.m. to midnight. UFO researcher Ed Grimsley will be speaking about his observations of spacecraft from which appear to be conducting war through the use of his military-grade goggles. He's been able to show on film UFO battles in our night sky. The admission price is $75, which will include a full barbecue dinner, chicken, ribs, brats, hamburgers, and hot dogs, salad, chips, cheeses, and dips, vegetable platter, and desserts. Beverages will also be included in the price, which will be beer, wine, soft drinks, and bottled water. The admission price will also include admission into the park, and if you'd like to camp overnight, you will be able to do so, and it also included in that price will be the parking. So I just wanted to put that out to everybody. If you're interested, go to the website, thewholeagenda.com, and you can prepay through PayPal, where we have a link up where it says prepay for Skywatch. Now I want to introduce my very special guest, which is going to be Jim Nichols for this evening. Jim Nichols is a noted artist, investigator, lecturer, and documentary filmmaker. He has produced an extraordinary body of UFO illustrations that has been published internationally in magazines, articles, books, and the Internet. His art was routinely featured on the History Channel's UFO Hunters, and it was so sad when they took that off the air, but they do still do repeats on that, which I try and catch whenever I can. And as well in his art book, Case Files Revealed, he shares the untold stories behind 40 of the most dramatic UFO illustrations based on actual accounts. His books are available at his website, which is www.jimnicholsufoarts.com. Noted, Jim Nichols is also the winner of 2 EBE Awards at 2010's International UFO Congress in Laughlin, Nevada, for his video documentary about Nazi saucers entitled The Aldebaran Mysteries. A DVD of his videos is also available through UFO TV Productions as well. 9 of his UFO-related videos, essays, are now presented by UFO TV on YouTube. Jim Nichols, welcome to the program. I am so glad to have you back on again.
Well, thanks. I didn't think it was going to be this soon.
Well, you know what? My correspondent came down because I was so sorry I couldn't make it to your lecture on UFOs, and he was just so thrilled and impressed. And I know he said that he's going to come back down again. That I said, let's get Jim Nichols on the show this evening. And I want to thank you for doing it on such short notice, Jim.
That's okay.
And I'm looking actually at 2 of your DVDs sitting in my studio right now. I've got them in hand, and I'm actually going to be giving these away at the Skywatch that we're going to have with Ed Grimsley. So I hope you can actually make it for that.
Well, actually, I have another presentation I have to give down here at the main library again that day. So I don't know if I'll be able to get up there, but thanks for the invite.
Okay, well, if things change, you will be my guest, and I would certainly love having you.
Thank
but Jim,
you.
there's a lot of...
If I can't make it for the 29th, I'd love to do it, reschedule for another time when I can show some of my videos.
Well, and that's it, because I wanted to make it like a whole, really like a whole festival.
Sure.
Atmosphere about this.
Yeah.
I want people to really be enthusiastic about what's going on and what they're really seeing and how important this whole subject truly is. And there's 3 things I really wanted to get into tonight, Jim, which I never got to touch on with you a week or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is the Nazi scientists, how they were transferred over here, how that was concocted by the United States. How they were able to transfer all this technology over here, unnoticed to the blind eye of this government and people in general. Number 2, the moon hoax, okay? This has been a big, big subject of mine for a long time. And as far as I'm concerned, with the conventional technology that we were using with the von Braun V2 rocket technology, there is no way possible we went to the moon with this conventional technology we had. I would say this: we did go to the moon, but not with this earthly technology. Those are two of the subjects. And then the third is my belief is that Hitler and a lot of his SS men did actually make it to Argentina and lived out their life over there. And there has been a lot of documented papers that have surfaced within the last few years that have proven this. Now, I can't say for sure that those papers weren't faked, but they sure looked real enough to me, Jim.
Well, that sounds like a full agenda for this evening.
Yes.
So where do you want to start?
I want to start first with the transference of technology and the scientists like Max Planck and Werner von Braun, which I think Werner von Braun was basically a front man for the real technology that was transferred over here to the United States, because you had the big money powers, including Prescott Bush, who was funding the Hitler war machine at that time, to get his hands on, well, not just him, but the group of the oligarchs, the money printers, who transferred that technology here to the United States. And that's where I'd really like to start.
Okay, wow. It is very complex, and it's not. If you look at it at a very cursory level, it's deceiving because there's so much complexity to this story, and you really. I wish we could sit down with Joseph Farrell and Jay Widener and Jim Mars and really dig deep into this, but and also. Oh, God, the book.
Well, you know what I will do, Jim? Not to interrupt you. You know what I will do?
Yeah.
I will try and get a hold of Joseph Farrell, Jay Widener, yourself, and I will try and put together a round table.
Right.
So we can do a total discussion on this.
Right. Because we've all looked at this stuff from different points of view, and if we could all put our points of view together, I think we could start to kind of put the puzzle together and get a really extraordinary picture of what was really happening over there. I mean, you have to recreate the whole pre-World War II psychology of Germany and what was going on over there at the time. And I mean, for instance, Werner von Braun. I think people don't realize that Werner von Braun was a dedicated, passionate rocket scientist long before he was ever a Nazi. And the the Third Reich actually just offered him a venue where he could expand his rocket technology understanding. And, of course, it gave him funding to do that. But you have to appreciate also he was under the gun. At the end of World War II, it was General Hans Kammler who had complete control over all the German secret technological programs. And
well, was Werner von Braun
was
privy to that, though?
Huh?
Do you think Werner von Braun was privy to that technology, or at least that information?
No, because it was all compartmentalized. I mean, von Braun, if he didn't have it, it's just like we have it now. If you don't have a need to know, if you're a rocket scientist, you don't have to need to know about anti-gravity technology research. So it was very compartmentalized. So von Braun, yes, was a brilliant rocket scientist, but just because he was developing V2, V1 rockets doesn't mean that he was involved in the anti-gravity research. That was the exclusive province of the Nazi SS, their highest level of secret project. So you understand there was the rocket program, and then there was, within the Luftwaffe, there was the V7 program, which was developing conventionally powered flying discs. And then there was the SSE-4, which was the exclusive province of the Nazi SS, their highest level of security, and they were the ones that were developing the anti-gravity technology. And these were all separate, individualized, compartmentalized aspects of German weapons development.
Here's a question for you, though. Because I know that developing the V-2 rockets, that they were using Jewish internment campees to use them as slave labor to, produce parts for the V-2 rockets. You think maybe that was the same scenario in the secret Vril Nazi Bell development?
Exactly.
And that's my question.
Well, these are all, even the Bell, and that was another compartmentalized aspect of German weapons development. Again, back to von Braun. I mean, he was making films prior to World War II promoting a manned spaceflight and selling these films to raise money to develop rocket technology. So he was doing that before Hitler and the Third Reich came along. But when the Third Reich rose to power, they took geniuses like von Braun and Hermann Oberth, and literally they were like, under the gun, you will develop rocket technology for us, or else. And it was interesting that at the end of the war, when the Reich was crumbling, I was going to say General Hans Kammler would have been very happy to have shot Werner von Braun because he didn't need him anymore. He said, I have used you. We have used your technology and your genius to the limit, and it's so we don't need you anymore. So we would kill you, and they would do the same to the slave labor that worked on these specialized projects. Once the Allies were bearing down on them, they would finish the project. They would take the slave laborers out in the woods and shoot them all. So, I mean,
and there were lots of mass graves found all throughout Nazi Germany at that time. So that absolutely is a 100% possibility.
Right. And these projects were scattered all around Germany, Czechoslovakia, Poland. So it's not like you can't say, well, they're all Nazis. Well, yeah, Nazis, but all these separate programs were compartmentalized and secret within the Third Reich. I'm sure there were programs that Kammler was working on that Hitler himself didn't even know about. So that you have to factor that into all the scenarios. And Nick Cook has a brilliant book called Search for Zero Point, and where he really has dug into a lot of what the Germans were doing, and he talks a lot about the Bell Project and so forth. But you really get the sense of how powerful General Hans Kammler was at the very end of World War II, and I strongly suspect that Kammler had probably more power within the SS at that time than even Hitler did. And Kammler completely disappeared in April of 1945, and nobody knew where or what ever became of him.
Which most likely probably ended up in Argentina with so many other SS Nazi officers, is my suspicion.
Right.
My question is this now, Jim. As far as the technology development of either the Bell or the Vril, I know that they were using, as far as I understand, they were using for power the BMW diesel engines.
Yeah, turbojet.
To create the electrical charge they needed. But from what I understand, and I've heard this more than one time, that they were actually using some either mercury or some kind of mercury-based alloy in the toroid of these Bell crafts or these Vril ships.
Right.
What's your take on that?
Well, it's interesting. This we have to go back to pre-World War II Germany, and this goes back to 1919. And there was a secret society, or a New Age society, let's call it that, called the Vril the Vril Society. And they were studying ancient Hindu text from, like 6,000 BC that talked about these craft called Vimana. And it's very explicit that in these texts it tells how they used mercury, that there was a magical quality to mercury. And when they heated the mercury in the engines of these Vimana, it would make the Vimana levitate. And the inference was also that beings came down from the stars who also used this mercury engine affair. So it was W.O. Schumann, the physicist W.O. Schumann, was studying these texts within the Vril Society and started to play around with making a mercury vortex engine, which is, as I understand it, is in the rudimentary form. You took a sphere with mercury in it, and you pressurized it, and you electrified it to get the mercury to spin, and the centrifugal force effect of the spinning mercury is very heavy, would create an anti-gravity effect. And so in so many of the schematic drawings you see of the Hanibu craft, in the very center of the craft is a sphere which is called the Schumann levitator. I mean, to be really specific of what the technology or what the physics were of that, I'm not. I've never been able to really dig into that or find an answer to that. But it's a sphere, and it's called the Schumann levitator, and it's a sphere that's right in the very heart of the craft. So apparently, it creates a vortex, electrogravitic vortex field around the craft, which is how they achieve anti-gravity levitating flight. And you have to understand these craft are not aircraft. They are not to be confused with aircraft because they're not flying in the conventional sense. They are levitating because they have their own discrete gravitational field.
Yes, and also, from what I understand, because so many World War II pilots called them Foo Fighters because there would be these glowing balls, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is because of the electrical discharge that was generated from the motors themselves when heating up this mercury-based liquid in the toroid would actually give the effect of the craft glowing.
Right.
Which I find just absolutely amazing, that in itself. Here's another question for you, Jim. Wasn't Robert Townsend at the same time working on some sort of similar technology based around the same time?
Who is that?
Not Robert Townsend.
T. Townsend Brown?
T. Townsend Brown. I'm so sorry.
T. Townsend Brown was working on an electrogravitics effect. He was also, Townsend Brown was also allegedly involved in the Philadelphia experiment. He was supposedly one of the scientists involved with that. And it's a comparable technology in that they wanted to create a sufficiently powerful electromagnetic field to make a destroyer, a ship at sea, invisible to both radar and physically invisible. And what they stumbled on were the basic fundamentals of electrogravitic propulsion.
Do you think that they also, because they maybe stumbled upon that the two technologies were intertwined together?
Well, what you're doing is you're manipulating time and space with a sufficiently powerful electromagnetic field. So what you're doing is you're actually altering physical reality. And they discovered that they could use this technology in a propulsion sense, and they said the most effective design to utilize this gravitic field would be an oblate spheroid. In other words, a flying saucer. A flying saucer actually would have the optimum shape to utilize this electromagnetic electrogravitic field to levitate. And Jonathan Brown was having success in a laboratory setting, in that he could get these little flying saucer things in his laboratory to actually fly and levitate.
You know what's amazing? I don't know if you've seen any of these videos, but there's a couple of people who've done this. Where they'll take basically a triangular sheet of aluminum foil, and they'll glue balsa wood on this foil and run, I believe it is copper wire along the lead edges of this aluminum triangled foiled type craft, and then they will apply a certain amount of voltage, and this thing will just levitate right off the ground.
Exactly.
And it amazes me when I saw it. I was like, well, but the thing is everybody's saying, well, we don't know why it functions.
Because it bothers the people that sell us the gasoline and the aircraft fuel and all that, because they don't want us to know that, because we might be able to develop flying machines that don't require petroleum.
And then we don't need them. And that's
exactly.
and that's
so
what
that's
they
why
hate.
That's why it's a big, deep, dark secret.
Yeah, well, absolutely. There's no question about it. Jim, getting back to Wernher von Braun, when they were all basically escorted here with a new life in hand, do you see? This is my thing that I keep questioning. Did they just use Wernher von Braun as a showpiece to make the NASA project take off? We're going to go to the moon, and so on and so forth. And then at the same time, passing along with that, they brought the secret program along with it.
Okay.
I know.
That's the good. Yeah, I think there was the whole rocket program was a huge PR thing. Rocket technology was significant in the early years, but this it's really, you have to go back and look at Hans Kammler. And at the very end of the war, what was going on at the very end of the war between the United States government and the highest-ranking people within the Third Reich who were able to cut deals with the United States Defense Department. The Germans were allegedly developing atomic weapons. They were developing rocket technology. They were developing anti-gravity technology. And these were like, the American Defense Department just was lusting after these technologies in the worst way. And people like Hans Kammler knew it. So we're okay. We'll cut deals with the Americans, and we'll cut deals with the Russians both. And I think that's exactly what was going on. Half of the saucer technology scientists went to the Soviet Union. Half of them went to the United States, and I believe the same went with the rocket scientists as well. So there was a lot of wheeling and dealing going on in 1945, and it looked like the winner was Hans Kammler. He walked away. He should have been executed as a war criminal, and he walked away scot-free.
But then
what the United States got was Wernher von Braun and 300 railroad boxcars loaded with V-2 rocket components, which they trucked all the way across the United States to White Sands, New Mexico, and then whammo bammo, you slap an American flag on it, and it becomes the United States rocket program.
Yeah,
and
everything
of course,
is just
NASA and the moon rockets and everything evolved out of that.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to touch upon next, as we are going to be going into a commercial break here in just a couple of minutes, is that how they pulled off this moon hoax. Now, I've seen Jay Widener's video on the Kubrick Odyssey, which was absolutely astonishing. And then I watched a comprehensive video. It's actually a full 3.5 hour comprehensive video, a complete breakdown on the technical aspects of how this whole moon landing was completely hoaxed. And to me, watching this, it was extraordinary because it pointed out the most obvious things which most people never even bothered to question. I mean, why was, NASA not allowing the TV stations to pick up a direct feed from their from Cape Canaveral for the actual moon landing itself? It was all hazed, fuzzed out. Yet you have these perfect, crystal clear pictures from these Hasselblad cameras,
right.
which most of these guys, there was no able for them to focus. They would just simply point and shoot. At that time, they did not have automatic aperture settings for these photos. And where were the flashes? I never saw a flash on that camera when I've seen the cameras itself. Yeah. So it's an absolute absurdity at this point to even think we could have possibly done that. And here's another kicker. This is the best one, though. The Van Allen belt. Okay? These men were traveling in a tiny, thin, hollow shell craft that the radiation could pass through like a hot knife passing through butter. Now, if those men going through that radiation belt, which would have taken at least several hours, 3 hours, maybe 4, to pass through it, they would have had enough doses of radiation from our sun that they would have been dead within 3 to 4 days. Now, Jim, I want to pick up right after this because I said a mouthful there, and there's a lot to talk about on this subject. We'd probably go another hour at least on this one. But I want everybody to stick with us. This is very important. We are talking with Jim Nichols, a UFO researcher, artist, documentary filmmaker, and lecturer. This man has been around a long time. He has done his homework, and he knows what he's talking about. And I recommend everybody go to Jim's website, www.JimNicholsUFO.com, where you can pick up his DVDs, his artwork. It's simply incredible, astounding portraits that this man has created. And I'm so sorry I waited so long to get you back on, Jim. I should have had you on last week too.
Right. We could just go on for weeks with this stuff,
Oh, I know, but it's this is the thing. It's so important, and this is the part that I keep stressing is to wake people up. This is just one other aspect of this agenda, which encompasses everything on how they've manipulated and mind-controlled everybody into believing this illusion we are living in. But everybody stick with us. This is the Whole Agenda radio show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino. We have Jim Nichols with us, and we'll be back right after this break.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Question: are you always sick? I mean, like colds and flus, feeling lousy. Does this happen to you? Are you tired? No energy? Bordering on depression? When your body feels bad, your mind becomes affected. Do you want to change? I'm saying, do you have the desire to feel better? Life Change Tea to the rescue. Our customers have said since I've been on the tea, I haven't been sick. Wow! An all-natural product that fights sickness. If you're sick, you miss work. Is it really worth it? Try Life Change Tea today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com, or you can call us at 928-308-0408. Let me say that again. 928-308-0408. Life Change Tea is a member of the Better Business Bureau. Lose those unwanted pounds, be healthy, and drink Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Robert Pino, and you are listening to The Whole Agenda, and I have my very special guest, Jim Nichols, where we are just about to get into the moon hoax, how that was completely faked, how Disney had a big part to do with that, and including Stanley Kubrick. Jim, please, take it away.
Yeah, well, I was... you know what's really, people don't really talk about this in conjunction to the hoax idea, but you got to go, this is like, what, 1969, right? And
yes.
The country was in a really bad way, The war was going bad in Vietnam. We had racial unrest. I mean, the cities were on fire with riots, anti-war demonstrations. I mean, the country was virtually in a state of siege back then. And we had, Bobby Kennedy had been murdered the year before, and just the general morale of the public itself was just at its lowest level. It was terrible. It was a terrible time back then. And I can't imagine what would have happened had we actually sent the guys to the moon, and that had been a failure too. And I don't think, and if you know Richard Nixon was a guy to hedge his bets, and I can just see him going to Stanley Kubrick, and or going to his space advisors. He did. He asked him. He said, "Is this a guaranteed thing? Are we going to succeed with this?" And they shook their heads and said it was a 50-50 chance whether it would succeed or not. And I don't think Nixon was prepared for a 50-50 chance. He needed something to buck up his administration, to buck up his presidency, to buck up the country. And it's like we had to succeed at the moon or else.
Now,
so I can really see him going to somebody like Stanley Kubrick, and it says, "Can you give me an alternative that guarantees that we have a successful landing on the moon to make the United States look like we're still top dog in a playground here?"
Right. Now, here's something I want to put out to you. Because from what I understand, in a video documentary that I saw, that Stanley Kubrick wanted to borrow a very special lens from NASA.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I believe that's how they entrapped him into doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the movie? Shoot. I just saw the movie not too long ago.
Yeah, exactly. It was
with Ryan O'Neal, and
yes.
They wanted to. It's shot. The film is set in like the middle of the 1700s in Europe, and he wanted the best low light camera lens he could get his hands on. And there are scenes in that film that are only lit by candlelight, and it's extraordinary. They're simply extraordinary, the scenes in that movie. But yeah, that was $1 million camera lens, and it was built specifically for NASA for low light photography of stars and so forth. So anyway, yeah, that was the deal. Kubrick got to use that lens, And, of course, he had just, in 1968, he had just filmed 2001: A Space Odyssey. And people were looking at the rushes from that film and saying, my God, it looks exactly like you're in space. It looks absolutely real and authentic. And so they went, as I understand it,
right.
They went to Kubrick and says, can you give us footage that looks exactly like we're putting men on the moon?
And hence slowing
as I understand
down
it, they
footage.
used
I'm sorry, Jim.
The same cameras and they used the same sound stage that he had actually shot 2001 in.
Exactly, and what I was going to say was, and hence the fact of that how they slowed the actual footage down on the moon landing set, because I'm not going to say they were on the moon. They slowed down the moon landing footage on Kubrick's set to make it look like they were on the moon. Now, here's the thing
back up though. It's like Kubrick had used that effect to create the slow motion movement to give you the feeling that there's zero gravity. So Kubrick had already used that technique in 2001. So they just applied the same technique to the footage that was shot allegedly at the moon landing.
Right. And here, but this is my point I was going to get to. If anybody has seen the astronauts in the space shuttle, okay, they are in zero gravity. Yes, there is oxygen, but they are in zero gravity.
Right.
They're not moving in slow motion.
No, they're zipping around like crazy. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That's the Hollywood illusion that people are so conditioned to seeing that they just expect that, right? So, yeah, that's another little telltale sign that something wasn't quite right. But no, the story was that actually we had been to the moon. I think Richard Hoagland tells the tale that we had a military NASA that was already on the moon way earlier than that in the early 60s.
Right. Well, I would say to that Richard Hoagland is probably right in that aspect. And, I've seen Hoagland's work, and I admire the man. He's been around for a long time. He's brought a lot of great information to people. As far as, the ruptured domes, I don't know. I can't say that for a fact.
Domes. You heard that discussion with Jay Wiedner about the glass domes, didn't you?
Yes, and he brings up the fact that they're using a backdrop in order to create that blue screen or green screen effect on the set.
Right.
Which I forgot the actual terminology for what he used.
It's a front projection screen. It is literally a screen of minute glass particles. So when Richard Hoagland does his computer analysis of the moon photographs, he's seeing this color spectrum effect, which is the diffraction of the light hitting the glass beads in the front projection screen. So it's not
exactly.
there's no glass wall there from a dome city. It's a glass screen for the front projection screen that's being used in the sound studio, in the sound stage.
Right. Now, here's the thing that I wanted to bring up. I didn't get a chance to tell you earlier because you were talking, and I didn't want to interrupt you. But I know for a fact that Ronald Dumsfeld at that time was involved with that directly, and it's been in a documentary.
Right.
So he actually said in the documentary that he met Kubrick and asked if he would do some, moonshots. And he pleaded with him, and he was extremely reluctant. But in the end, he ended up doing it anyway.
Well, I think they give him a deal he couldn't refuse. It's either do it or else. But
Find the horse that's laying in bed with you.
Right. The other thing too, and I've read the analysis or listened to the analysis of the photographs, especially given the camera that they were using, the Hasselblad camera. They said with that camera you you can either focus on the foreground or the background, but you can't shoot a picture with everything in focus. They said with that camera, with that lens, it's simply physically impossible. But if you look at the moon pictures, everything is in focus. And that's technically impossible with that camera. But now you go back to Stanley Kubrick in 2001, the shots that they did in the sound studio, especially the sequence with the apes, right? It's supposed to be on a vast African savanna there, and you can, everything is in focus. The background is in focus, the far distance is in focus, everything in the foreground is in focus. Now, how in the hell did they do that? Well, with that widescreen Cinerama camera, it was like the Hasselblad. It could not focus. It could not shoot everything in focus unless it was a very, very small set. And that's where they developed the front. Actually, it's called a front projection screen, where there would be they would use a color slide of panoramic background, scenic, and that would be on the screen behind them, and that way the camera could focus on, everything would be in focus in the shot. And you see the same thing in the moon shot. Everything is in perfect focus. And that was another telltale component or clue that actually Stanley Kubrick was the guy doing the photography.
Right. Now,
and
I
plus
don't know if you remember.
Plus, there's and I don't. Kubrick would have been smart enough to not do this, but there's fill light. There's, if you're actually on the moon, there would be only one light. It would be the sun, and everything would be extremely stark, and there wouldn't be any fill light, like there were reflectors, like on a Hollywood soundstage, you would have reflectors or additional lighting to fill in the shadows, right? And
right.
You see that on all the photographs.
Exactly. Go ahead, finish up, Jim.
Yeah, but anyway, that's and the real kicker to me, and the thing that bothers me the most of all, is that there's no evidence of underneath the LEM, the landing module, underneath the engine there. There's no evidence that the moon surface has been disturbed in any way by that with that rocket landing on the moon surface. It
would have left a crater.
Yeah, there'd be a crater. You would see a blast crater, and sand radiating out in all directions, but you see none of that.
Right, and also this is the other thing I was going to get to. You basically stole my thunder. But the follow-up question to that is, now how do they have a camera sitting outside, of the LEM as it's blasting off to go back into orbit, and the camera is following them up? There's no one to operate the camera. Who was using the remote control system to follow it?
That's a toughie, isn't it? Yeah,
it sure is. And the other part was this, that there was an Australian woman in this video documentary that I watched, that she said that she was in Australia, and she was actually watching a live version of this, and she watches an astronaut kick a Coke bottle across the moon's surface. Then they went into that loop, they cut it, and it never came back on again. She says, I saw it, I witnessed it. Right. And yet again, it never resurfaced again. Right. And what about the rock with a C in it on the set? Right. It just goes on and on.
I mean, that is typical. That is a classic Hollywood thing. It's like all the props have to be in the exact place where they're supposed to be, so you number the props. So here's a rock that has a prop number on it, and unfortunately the camera caught the prop number.
Right. Well, you know what? I think Stanley Kubrick was an extremely intelligent man, a wonderful filmmaker. I enjoyed every one of his films. I've watched them more than one time, especially Clockwork Orange. I thought that was a masterpiece. Really was. But here's the thing. I think his greatest piece, and Jay Weidner pointed this out in The Shining, I think he was trying to tell the audience subliminally that the moon landing was a complete hoax. If you go back through that movie, you'll see the little boy wearing the Apollo 11 shirt, and you'll see the two girls he's talking to. That's the duality. There's what they present in front of you and what's really happening in back of you. And I think Stanley was extremely smart in pointing all this out. And that was just one of the facts.
Well, I think it bothered Stanley. I think he. I don't think it ever really sat well with him having done that.
Well, he certainly died under some seriously mysterious circumstances. That's for sure.
Well, his last film was really.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah. That's a scare. That's one of the spookiest movies I've ever seen.
Well, it's really an in-depth look at the Illuminati, if you see it for what it is.
Absolutely. I had no idea that sequence was in the film when I got it, and I about fell off my chair when I said, I'm not seeing this. I can't believe a Hollywood producer like Stanley Kubrick would have nerve enough to put this sequence in a movie. But he did, but then he never lived to tell the tale, did he?
No, he didn't, but his wife has spoken up saying that he definitely died under mysterious circumstances. She has not come out outright and said, no, this is what happened, because I think she's very fearful for her life and her kid's life, which, rightly so. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
But Jim, getting back to the moon hoax, okay? If you look at the photographs of the shadow angles, and you can actually see some photographs where there is an exterior light source reflecting off the helmet of the astronauts back into the photo, you can actually see that those are stage lights. To me, that is the end-all, be-it-all. That is 100% fake.
So what's the deal here? I mean, I believe that we have been in space. I believe we are operating in space. If you listen to the people like Gary McKinnon talking about the list of naval ships that are the space fleet, that they have no, that our Earth-based Navy has no ships by that name. And then there's transfer orders for off-world, crew transfers and personnel transfers. I'm sure we are in space, but probably in a way that the rank and file of the American public would scarce believe.
Yeah, you kind of broke up on me on that last statement.
Yeah,
Jim.
I think people would find it hard to believe that we have that kind of operation going in space.
Well, I think just most people don't want to believe it. They would rather remain asleep and not be really aware to what the shadow government has been doing in collusion with these reptilians and these grays. Sure. And I think, without a fact, this has been going on since 47 or maybe earlier, because you brought up the Vril technology and the Bell technology, which would be the beginning of this whole thing.
Yeah, that, and then you factor in testimony like Andrew Basiago, says he walks into a facility in El Segundo, California, walks into a Stargate and steps out the other door, and he's on Mars. So it's like, what do we need Apollo rockets for if we could just walk through a doorway and we're already there?
And that's exactly it.
And if you can do it on Mars, you can do it on the moon. So it's like there's
or
a
anywhere else.
Reality out there that they're already functioning in, that the rest of us are virtually oblivious to.
Well, did you happen to catch? I know that you weren't here at the MUFON because you were doing your own lecture, which I'm sorry I missed. But Stan Romanek brings up a document which says U.S. I believe it's a U.S. Army or U.S. Air Force Space Command document following Stan Romanek's encounters, which I was just blown away when I saw that.
Now, this was in reference to our own space fleet?
Correct.
Yeah.
Which right there ties into exactly what you've been saying, because this document was ended up in his mailbox. Okay, when he opened it up, he saw the file that was on him. It was a classified document. Of course, some things blotted out as usual, but it was sent to him by somebody, and it was titled United States Air Force Space Command, the Romanek file, which was just blew me away when he started talking about this and started talking about it was one particular instance where it says Romanek's expecting another visit, so on and so on and so forth, but it was documented United States Air Force Space Command. So everything you just said would basically it would basically say that, hey, you know what? Yes, this is happening. This is actually very real. My question is, again, is why so many people are not speaking up more about this. I mean, do they think they have a golden ticket or something? I mean, I just, that I don't get. That I don't get.
Yeah, I don't either. It's disturbing. But it's great. I mean, you have people like Henry Deacon, Arthur Newman, who's come forward and talked about the jump gates, and Solar Warden, the Navy Space Fleet. It's called Solar Warden.
I've never heard that.
What kind of mischief are they up to out there? Are they doing something for our benefit or something for the benefit of the ruling elite?
Well, it's that breakaway civilization that Richard Dolan's been talking about.
Right.
So, in my opinion, from all the documentation that I've seen on it, it is very real, and it is very much so happening, and it's been happening for a long, long time. And I think that if they think they can create, have this total breakaway civilization, that they can leave us behind and say, well, now you can fend for yourselves to whatever these earth changes are coming about. And it's a very small, select group that I'm talking about who've been part of this breakaway civilization. Because all the government minions who think they've got their so-called ticket to a life off planet have another thing coming.
Yeah. Well, I think the breakaway civilization has been around since probably the end of World War II, because I think that's what the German hierarchy was actually creating, and that the war they knew they couldn't win the war in Europe, and so they put all their energies into creating this breakaway civilization that was probably, in part based in the Antarctic and Argentina, and for the real, buffs out there, for the real conspiracy buffs, they may have actually gone off planet as well. But they were certainly developing technologies that seemed to have that potential. And it was the war in Europe was just a diversion to buy time so they could put together this breakaway civilization in the Antarctic and probably in South America too. And you start, well, where has that gone? Where has that, in all the years since 1945, how much advanced is that? And is there a crossover between our breakaway civilization and that original German breakaway civilization? Now, these are questions I'd like to throw at Joe Farrell and Jim Mars and Jay Wiedner and see where do you think this is all gone? And does it all consolidate at some point?
Well, I think those are the questions I like to ask, too. As a matter of fact, Jim Mars is going to be on next month, Jim. Mm-hmm. And I strongly encourage you to listen to the show and definitely call in and talk with Jim, because there's a lot of questions. And the man's done an enormous amount of investigative, just like yourself, investigative work. And the fact of the matter is that we've been lied to about everything our whole lives, and this is just one of the biggest aspects of it. This whole technology that they've kept to themselves and kept it from everybody else, to be enslaved to this, petroleum system. And I think, and here's another thing. I think the eventuality of it here, probably, I don't know, within the next 2 to 3 years. I don't know if I'm right about this, but this is my personal belief, that so many so many people are starting to come up with alternative energy devices that it just can't be held back anymore.
Well, I would hope so, but I think what you're going to find at the end of the day is that there's been a much bigger agenda going on here, and the humans on planet Earth are just pawns, very small little pawns in a much bigger game that's going on here. And it involves off-planet civilizations, probably reptilian group and so forth, and other groups that are probably competing for this planetary system. And when the blinders come off, and like Richard Dolan says, disclosure is both impossible and inevitable.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
We're going to go on to a break here.
Sure.
I got my news correspondent doing a quick 15-minute news update. Okay. So everybody stick with us. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. You're listening to Jim Nichols. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and we'll be back 15 after the top of the hour. Stick with us. A lot more to come.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Question: are you always sick? I mean, like colds and flus, feeling lousy. Does this happen to you? Are you tired? No energy? Bordering on depression? You know, when your body feels bad, your mind becomes affected. Do you want to change? I'm saying, do you have the desire to feel better? Life Change Tea to the rescue. Our customers have said since I've been on the tea, I haven't been sick. Wow! An all-natural product that fights sickness. If you're sick, you miss work. Is it really worth it? Try Life Change Tea today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com, or you can call us at 928-308-0408. Let me say that again. 928-308-0408. Life Change Tea is a member of the Better Business Bureau. Lose those unwanted pounds, be healthy, and drink Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com.
Good evening, everyone. This is Paul Landris for the Whole Agenda Radio Show, broadcasting to you live on the Micro Effect Network. First on the agenda, I actually want to thank a couple people out there for their hospitality and their graciousness. Actually, our guest tonight, Jim Nichols, surprise guest to me when I came in, and Roger Sharia, who is the Pima County State Section Director of MUFON. I went down Saturday to the Tucson MUFON meeting where Jim Nichols was their main speaker. And like I said, just wanted to thank them. They're really gracious people, not only for their graciousness, but for the information they provided. I'm going to give you just a quick synopsis, and then a whole story with pictures and everything will be posted by broadcast time tomorrow night. First up on their platform was Tolek of the Andromeda Council. And he spoke about different dimensions going back and through with them. Also, an actual battle going on. That's what our earthquakes were about in West Virginia and in Colorado with the use of scalar weapons. Second up was Alan Bentz. He is the founder of UFO Research. He did a wonderful hard map and soft map presentation of Area 51 and S4. An interesting gentleman to listen to. And then the main speaker for the day was Jim Nichols. He presented a video essay on his video essay Disclosure, and there was discussion afterwards. Then he showed his newest video. In fact, he just finished it days before, one of the first people to see him. It was on the Bureau. I don't want to give much away because I don't know, his intentions with that. Other than the fact I can tell you, it was just excellent. It was very mesmerizing. In fact, this is how good it actually was. I went down with a friend of mine and love her to death. She's quite animated, for better words. She never stops talking. Never. Through both of his video essays, she never said one word. She broke out a pad and did nothing but copy down information. Hey, Jim Nichols out there, I'm going to have a full supply of your DVDs on hand when she comes over. Like I said, I'll post on the website. They generally meet every second Saturday of the month at the Wilmot Library. And Jim and Roger, thank you very much for your hospitality and your graciousness. Okay, stock market today. Dow closed at 11,401.10. It's down 108.08. NASDAQ closed at 2612.83, down 948. S&P 500 closed at 1204.09, down 1192. Oil 88.50. Up 15 cents. Gold, $17.78.50, down $34. Silver, $39.65, down $1.01. And gold-silver ratio today was 45:11. Heavy rain and landslides are complicating the search for survivors. It was a 6.9 earthquake. Has killed at least 53 people in an isolated Himalayan region straddling India, Nepal, and China. The quake, centered in India's northern state of Sikkim, killed at least 53 people and left many others missing. There's now been more than 5,000 Indian Army forces which have been deployed to aid in earthquake rescue. The 6.9 magnitude quakes struck the region last night, knocking out electrical power and completely disrupting communications. Heavy monsoon rains prevented flights to the area until the middle of the day today, permitting little other than foot traffic for some time. So there was limited airdrops of food and rescue personnel. One of the key highways that was running through there was blocked by numerous landslides, and the other road surfaces were cracked and fissured by the force of the quake. And the rural areas have been very badly hit. Villages are devastated, or the huts were flat, and everyone was having to be evacuated. Quake-related deaths have also been reported in Bihar and West Bengal states. Tremor was felt to the Indian capital, New Delhi, which was approximately 1,000 kilometers away, and in neighboring countries of Bangladesh and Bhutan. There has been an emergency meeting called to coordinate disaster response. It's International Talk Like a Pirate Day. It's a periodic holiday created in 1995 by John Bear, Old Chum Bucket, as he's known, and Mark Summers, Captain Slap of Albany, Oregon. They who proclaimed September 19th each year as the day when everyone in the world should talk like a parrot. An example being an observer of this holiday would greet friends not with hello, but with ahoy matey. The holiday observance springs from a romanticized view of the golden age of piracy. It has now become an official holiday for members of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. According to Summers, today is the only holiday to come into being as a result of a sports injury. He has stated that during a racquetball game between Summers and Bauer, one of them reacted to the pain with an outburst of R, and the idea was born. That game took place on June 6, 1995, but out of respect for the observance of D-Day, they chose Summers' ex-wife's birthday. That would be easy for him to remember. Part of the success for this international spread of the holiday has been attributed to non-restriction of the idea or trademarking. In effect, opening the holiday for creativity and viral growth. Antiques Roadshow has turned up one of its oddest items ever, an unused roll of toilet paper rejected by the Beatles. They refused to use it while recording at the Abbey Road studios in the 60s, claiming it was too hard and shiny, and also thought it was disgraceful that each sheet was stamped with the EMI logo. But the roll was sold with a jokey letter of authentication by EMI manager Ken Townsend at the Abbey Road sale in 1980. It was bought for £85 by Barry Thomas, who took it along to the road show, which starts a new run on BBC. What level of fame do you have to reach before your rejected toilet roll is something sold at an auction? Asked show host Fiona Bruce. Barry, 66, who ran a recording studio in Coventry, said, "I just want a souvenir from the great days of Abbey Road, and I bought the roll for a laugh. I submitted it to the roadshow experts because I wanted to get an evaluation. They said they couldn't price such an odd object. But Barry could actually be sitting on a fortune. Already, a Japanese Beatle fan has offered him £1,000 for a single sheet. But he says, I don't fancy unrolling it." 5-inch-long baby dinosaur with a short nose, armor, and spikes, belly up and likely drowned in what is now the Washington, D.C. Beltway, say scientists, who described the finding as a new species as well as the first hatchling of any dinosaur species ever recovered in the eastern United States. Tiny dinosaur, the youngest nodosaur ever found. This group of short-necked, plant-eating dinosaurs reached about 30 feet long when fully grown and had powerful jaws and small teeth. Dinosaurs grew up faster than we ever imagined, said Ray Sanford, a Maryland-based dinosaur tracker who was the lead author of a study on the find in the Journal of Paleontology. "We can tell this little guy was just a hatchling because the bones were elastic, cartilaginous upon death, and not ossified." Stanford's found the new 110-million-year-old nodosaur while searching a creek bed in Maryland's Prince George County after an extensive flood. The area, according to Stanford, was quite a hotbed of dinosaur activity during the early Cretaceous period. Living wasn't always easy for dinosaurs, however, as this little guy proves. They believe the baby dinosaur, which grew to only 5 inches long, drowned before getting buried by sediment in the stream. They based this on the location and the fact that the dinosaur was preserved on its back. Stanford did say dinosaurs, they exhibit float and bloat characteristics, which was shared by the specimen. Excuse me. We didn't know how much about hatchling nodosaurs at all prior to this discovery, and this is certainly enough to motivate more searches for dinosaurs in Maryland, along with more analysis of Maryland dinosaurs. Stanford indicates the short-snouted dinosaur, preserved as a natural cast, softens the image of its tougher-looking armored parents. Babies tend to be cute with their short noses, so this one fits that description, he said. It also had legs that were disappointingly long for its body, allowing for running. Stanford noted the hatchling nodosaur to the Smithsonian's Natural Museum of Natural History, where it's now on display and is also available for additional research. Stanford hinted that he has more exciting finds awaiting further analysis. If his predictions hold true, Maryland may be the home to the world's biggest plesiosaur, some of the most detailed prehistoric mammal tracks ever found, and wonderful pieces of fossilized dinosaur poop with associated footprints that reveal possible behavioral traits. Give an infant a clean white wall and bright red crayon, and you can guess the result. Crayon plus wall equals fun. But it isn't just infants who like scribbling. So for all those frustrated adults just wanting to share their doodles with the public, there's now a solution. Googles, not to be confused with Google Goggles, is an open-source applet that anyone can add to their browser, which will allow them to both read the doodles that others have left behind on public websites, as well as add their own. Created by Synapse Software, Googles is an essentially harmless bit of code that allows people to scribble on the internet, all without permanently defacing anything. The doodles are only visible to those who installed the applet on their browser, and they can be erased quickly. And because everyone has the ability to see and edit what anyone else writes, it's not exactly a secure means for passing messages. It is, however, a mild distraction that lets the kid with the crayon in us come out and play a bit. And if you want to know where the site is, you can actually go to our website, whole agenda, and I've got a link up there for you direct to it. Okay, Killer Biscuits, wanted for murder. I'll leave out the woman's name in this case, but she is a resident of San Diego. She was visiting her in-laws while she went to a nearby supermarket to pick up some groceries. Several people noticed her sitting in a car with her windows rolled up and her eyes closed, with both hands behind the back of her head. One customer who had been at the store, he'd first walked by and just thought, she was probably just napping, had her hands behind her back. He started becoming concerned because he'd been in there a while and she was still there. So he walked over to the car. He noticed that he noticed that her eyes were now open and she looked very strange. He asked her if she was okay, and she replied she had been shot in the back of the head and had been holding her brains in for over an hour. Man called the paramedic, the paramedics then broke into the car because the car was locked, but she refused to remove her hands from her head, then telling the story about what she was doing. When they finally got in, they found that she had a wad of bread dough on the back of her head. Well, what had happened, a Pillsbury biscuit canister that she had bought had exploded from the heat in the back seat, making a loud noise that sounded like a gunshot, and a wad of dough hit her in the back of the head. Okay, here's another one. Man was looking out his window one night, and he noticed there were people in a shed, and they were stealing things. So what he did was he phoned the police, and the police told him there was no one in the area that could come to his aid. They said they would send someone over as soon as possible. So what he did was he hung up. A minute later, he called him back and said, "Hey, I called you a minute ago. There were people breaking my shed and stealing things. You don't have to hurry now because I've gone ahead and I've shot them." Well, within minutes, there were half a dozen police cars in the area, plus helicopters and an armed response unit. They caught the burglars red-handed. One of the officers said, "I thought you said you'd shot him," which he replied, "I thought you said there was no one available," which in turn, they arrested him. Okay, and a couple weird animal facts for you. Elephants are the only animals that can't jump. A crocodile cannot stick its tongue out. A snail can sleep for 3 years. Butterflies taste with their feet. And my personal favorite, the ant always falls on its right side when intoxicated. Well, that's it for me tonight. This has been Paul Landers for the Whole Agenda Radio Show, broadcasting to you live on the Micro Effect Network. Thank you and good night.
And welcome back to the Whole Agenda. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and I have my very special guest, Jim Nichols. And we were talking about the moon hoax before we had the news break. And Jim, it's great to have you, of course. Always enjoyed talking to you. You're an extremely intelligent, prophetic person with just a wealth of information. And what I wanted to get into next was about Hitler. Was he actually killed in that bunker? And if not, do you think he escaped to Argentina with a lot of his SS soldiers and probably lived their life out in Argentina?
Well, all I can do is speculate. I really don't know for sure, but my good friend Wendell Stevens, he just passed away a year ago. Wendell told me an interesting story where he was in South America years ago, and he claims that he met an older gentleman down there who was German, and he thought that. He knew it was a stretch, but he thought this guy was a ringer for Adolf Hitler.
Well, did he have the mustache? I mean, did Wendell say, well, look, it probably could have been Hitler in an older version? Did he still have the mustache? Did he still have the same hairdo? I mean, what did Wendell say about that?
I think he had the same stature, and, of course, he was much older, but I don't think that... I don't recall whether he had the mustache or not, but I'm sure he had gray hair and was quite aged. But Wendell also was aware that there was a huge cache down there of fine art that had been secreted away and stored down there that had been confiscated from Europe during the war. So there are a lot of strange stories that go on, and anything's possible. Anything's possible. Do you think they actually shot Osama bin Laden? I mean, you know,
exactly.
The forensics on that are, you can, if you don't have, the corpus delicti, you can say pretty much any damn thing you want and get away with it. So, at the end of the war, I don't know. I don't know what kind of deals Kammler was making with our government.
Well, I know
one
factually.
One of those deals might have been to let Hitler, escape to oblivion in South America, and we'd have a double, or we could say whatever we wanted to say about the bunker in Berlin. The bunker was blown to smithereens by Russian tanks, as I understand it, or bombs. So it's the bottom line. As of 1945, there was no more Adolf Hitler. So you can make up whatever story you want from that point.
Well, right, and I totally agree with you. But factually speaking, there were several German U-boats that did surrender themselves to the South American Coast Guard,
exactly,
or the South American Army down there.
Right,
and they did. This was factual, that they were hauling off lots of crates from that U-boat,
exactly,
and they were given immunity.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, yeah, okay, we can say, all right, that's not speculation, that actually happened. But
right.
Who came off of those U-boats is
exactly.
the question.
Right. Well, it wasn't just who came off, but what came off those U-boats, because they were U-boat commanders who were captured and interrogated by naval personnel who claimed that they had been ferrying components, rocket and UFO components to the Antarctic. And there was a U-boat that was sank off the coast of Norway that had, 40 tons of mercury on it. And to this day, that U-boat is still extremely dangerous because of the toxic level of the mercury, plus the ordnance inside the submarine could still go off, and I think it's been quarantined as being extremely dangerous.
Where is that U-boat? I mean, where do they put that? Because this part, I heard about the mercury, but where was this U-boat left?
Off the coast of Norway somewhere.
And it's still there?
It's still there.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing to me.
And there's the story of the U-234 U-boat that was that surrendered to the United States Navy off the coast of, I think, New Jersey, and it was carrying atomic bomb components. So that's another story. That's another incredible story that's in Jim Marr's book, The Fourth Reich. So yeah, there's lots of really strange anecdotal tales that pop up right at the end of World War II.
Well, here's the thing too, Jim. That I don't know if you're familiar with Randy Winters,
yes.
But when he was giving his lecture, and this was part of his lecture on Billy Meyer,
mm-hmm.
that he also said that he had, and I saw the photos that he actually presented, and I believe they were somewhere from either Argentina or Brazil, where you see these Bell ships or Vril, I can't say which were, but you see these photos of these vehicles parked on these platforms, and I guess they were taken by this young Brazilian boy and
mm-hmm.
presented to Randy Winters.
Right.
So I find that extraordinary in itself. So I would look at it as that technology was brought there, they redeveloped it after the war, and then started creating this breakaway civilization, which included part of the shadow breakaway government of the United States, Germany, and whoever else is involved. I would assume Russia too.
Yeah, I interviewed Vladimir Trzynski back in the mid '80s, and he said, "Well, you have to understand that Argentina always had cordial relations with Germany. They had a treaty with Germany, and Vladimir said there are towns in Argentina up in the mountains that are all German." And he said you would go to those towns and you would think you were at a village in Bavaria because everybody's German, they all speak German, and it's that same kind of alpine setting that the Germans loved. So it's like, there's a lot of stuff down there that we don't know about.
Well, and you're right, because how many people know that there's a huge Italian population that lives in Argentina, which looks eerily identical to the Italian Mediterranean setting.
Sure.
And not a lot of people know that.
Sure.
So that could be very, very well possible.
Exactly.
But again, you're right. Yes, it is speculation. But the intriguing part is, they gave the immunity to these U-boat commanders to land and not be prosecuted for war crimes. It's just, to me, there are no coincidences.
Yeah. So what was the payoff? What did America get? What did our Defense Department get that we would look the other way on potential war criminals?
Well, I mean, if you ask me, all these government officials who've been involved in all these cover-ups are all war criminals. They're all terrorists because they've had it out for the mainstream population of this planet for a long, long time. Either killing us with fluoride and high fructose corn syrup and chemtrails and their Codex Alimentarius and their Agenda 21. I mean, we go on and on. You talk about the Georgia Guidestones. That's just it just keeps piling up and piling up. And I say, look, it's all evident is here. I don't know what it's going to take for people to understand. The fact of the matter is, this is all unfolding in front of our eyes right as we speak.
Well, you kind of understood that the Brits and the Americans were really not. Germany really didn't consider us as their arch enemy. That they were. I mean, you know, the Queen of England is German. They're Hanovers. They're not really Windsors. So it's like Hitler says, you know, it's like the Brits are really not our natural enemies. Hitler was more obsessed with the Russians and the Slavic peoples. He believed that they were not they were a sub-race and that they needed to be exterminated. So, but he saw the Brits and the Americans more as, you know, their brethren. So I don't. He was much more half-hearted about, you know, going to war with the United States and with Great Britain, and except that we had the monopoly over the petroleum, and which would always keep Germany behind the eight ball, and the same with Japan. So there was this enclave within Germany between World War I and World War II that was wanted to develop alternative energy sources that would liberate the German people from their hopeless codependence on petroleum.
And this is where the Vril technology really came into play.
Yeah, I can see where this would have been the major threat, actually, to Britain and the United States. It's like, oh, well, what if the Germans really do capitalize on this alternative energy source, they really could become serious competitors in a world market system. And of course, the Brits and the Americans didn't want that in any way, shape, or form, because you know, petroleum is a big deal here, and that's what makes the world go round for these power brokers.
And you're absolutely right, Jim. And there's a couple other things I want to touch on after the break here. I want to talk about John Searle. I want to talk about Ralph Ring. Of course, the anti-gravity technology that they came up with. And there's been so many people, and again, they just keep getting shut down over and over because of the oligarchs of the oil monopoly on this planet who intend to keep us enslaved to this fictitious monetary system and this oil, or this whole oil monstrosity. It's just so disgusting, makes me sick. But stick with us. I'm your host, Robert Pino. You're listening to the Whole Agenda Radio Show, and I have my very special guest, Jim Nichols. We'll be right back after this break. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow patriots. This is Big John Lipscomb, and I wanted to share with you my brand new magazine. It's called The Sovereign Life, and you can get a copy at thesovereignlifemagazine.com. If you can't spell sovereign, you probably have no interest in living free anyway. My magazine is full of articles about making the move to a sovereign life, with articles written by 36 freelance writers about things like buying land on the cheap, alternative housing, growing a garden, and so much more. I guarantee you'll love this magazine. It's homesteading on steroids. Check it out at thesovereignlifemagazine.com.
It's hard to imagine when things are going reasonably well just how quickly things can change. But what would it take? Economic collapse? Massive crop failure? chemical or biological attack. So many situations could find you in the grocery looking to pick up food for your family only to find that the shelves are empty. There's nothing. Don't let that happen. Act today to make sure that if it ever comes to that, you and your family will be provided for. Visit freezedryguy.com to look at the wide variety of survival foods available. Freeze-dried foods from the Freeze Dry Guy store longer, rehydrate faster, are nutritionally superior to, and taste better than any other long-term storage food available. Visit freezedryguy.com or call toll-free 866-404-3663. freezedryguy.com.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Question: are you always sick? I mean, like colds and flus, feeling lousy. Does this happen to you? Are you tired? No energy? Bordering on depression? You know, when your body feels bad, your mind becomes affected. Do you want to change? I'm saying, do you have the desire to feel better? Life Change Tea to the rescue. Our customers have said since I've been on the tea, I haven't been sick. Wow! An all-natural product that fights sickness. If you're sick, you miss work. Is it really worth it? Try Life Change Tea today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com, or you can call us at 928-308-0408. Let me say that again. 928-308-0408. Life Change Tea is a member of the Better Business Bureau. Lose those unwanted pounds, be healthy, and drink Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com.
Welcome back to The Whole Agenda. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and I have my very special guest, Jim Nichols. And I was asking Jim a few questions just before we went to break. I wanted to talk about John Cyril, Ralph Ring, and the technology that they developed and were shut down by the Department of Energy here in the United States and in England. Jim, are you there?
Yeah. Refresh me on John Cyril a little bit.
Oh, John Cyril, the scientist who developed the Cyril technology, basically creating an electrogravitic system through the use of magnetics, electricity, to basically reproduce the anti-gravity through a series of magnetized toroid, so to speak. And it was just incredible stuff when I started researching it myself. And he and his colleagues actually built a craft, and it actually floated, and they actually went from point A to point B. The next thing you know, he was shut down, his laboratory was burned down, and he was also arrested on a bunch of fictitious charges.
Well, that's amazing. You would think they would just quietly hire him and put him away in some top-secret underground facilities and start making flying sausage for us, guy. I guess they already had him, didn't need him. That's unfortunate. I'm not really familiar with Cyril's story, but it runs true. It sounds very similar to what happened to Victor Schauberger. He was another. He was actually a forest warden. He wasn't really a physicist, but he was kind of a Nikola Tesla kind of guy. He just had a natural understanding for natural energy vortices and how to harness that technology and so forth. And he was pressed into service also by the Third Reich in Germany, and he fared about as well. He developed a machine called the levitator, I think, diamagnetic levitation. He developed a machine that was using water, actually, instead of mercury to create the electromagnetic vortex effect. And he said the damn thing shot off through the hangar ceiling and blew right through the top of the hangar. But he's another guy that was captured by the United States after the war, and the United States took all his patents, all his designs, all his personal papers, and essentially he was just completely owned, lock, stock, and barrel by the United States government, and he died dejected, I think, in 1958, and he says, I don't even own myself anymore. So it's like there's these brilliant men who have these brilliant insights and understand these technologies, and they're all discarded to the junk heap.
You know, it's always the bigger picture for these people, and not for the people, not for the individuals who need to lead a better life, a life of freedom, a life of a life of freedom outside this system of tyranny that these oligarchs, these back shadowy creatures have created.
Well,
And if even same thing with Ralph Ring, they did the same exact thing to him, and there's probably numerous others we probably haven't even heard about. They did the same thing, even with just the basic technology to Stan Mayer with his water buggy car. He was poisoned, murdered at a lecture that he was doing to get investors to, develop the technology that it basically already was developed by him, just to put it into the marketplace. So, at one point, Jim, and I feel so strongly about this, at one point, there's 7 billion people on this planet. And if it's only a handful of these monsters running this whole show, keeping people deluded in the illusion of this paper transaction system, which basically is worthless and means nothing, because the real value is in the commodity that the human being actually produces. But if we would just quit producing it for these satanic ritualists, we would have a system of peace, love, and wisdom on this planet overnight. Do you realize that if we would just stop going to work and quit paying our taxes for 1 week, all these governments, the whole system would collapse under its own weight, Jim?
Well, really, it's like, you look at World War II and Hitler and the Germans and the Nazis and all that stuff, and we've been raised to think it was all about politics. It wasn't about politics at all. It was about commerce. It was about money. It was about power, world power. And I don't know if you're aware that Allen Dulles and John Foster Dulles, who, John Foster Dulles was Eisenhower's Secretary of State, and Allen Dulles was head of the CIA. But prior to early in World War II, they worked for a law firm in New York City called Sullivan and Cromwell, and these guys were actually developing laws, coming up with ways to circumvent the United States Constitution, so big corporations like IT&T could do business with the Germans without being subject to prosecution for consorting with the enemy.
Yeah, subterfuging our Constitution, exactly.
Doing. Right. Henry Ford was Adolf Hitler admired Henry Ford to such a degree he made him an honorary Nazi. And Standard Oil gave the United States Air Force orders not to bomb certain factories in Germany because of financial considerations. So it's like it's a joke after a while. This isn't about politics. This isn't about freedom or democracy. It's about the bottom line. It's about the big bucks and who controls them.
You're right. I mean, Henry Ford said in a quote himself, he said, if the American people knew how the actual economy of the United States worked, there would be a revolution overnight.
Exactly.
To me, Jim, I just can't wait when this all comes crumbling down around them. You can see their fiat money paper system dissolving around them as we speak.
Well, I mean,
the unfortunate part.
Right. Think back, Robert, how it's not that many years ago we wouldn't even have considered having a conversation like this.
That's right.
So the people are becoming aware. There is this incredible political awakening that's going on worldwide right now, and this is this is a remarkable social phenomena unto itself. And I happen to know that the ruling elite is seriously dismayed by this. I just listened to a commentary by Zbigniew Brzezinski himself, and he's concerned, he's dismayed that this political awakening that's happening all over the world is throwing a wrench in their plans, and the ruling elite, their plans for global domination. And
yes.
And he also made the rather disturbing cryptic comment that it's easier now to kill 1 million people than it is to control them. And that is exactly what Zbigniew Brzezinski said. And this man is advisor to President Barack Obama.
That's correct. And I do remember that speech he gave. I watched that on video, actually. I didn't watch it live, but I watched it on video. And you know what he also has done? He has invested heavily now, just recently, in gold. And so has Warren Buffett, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes to show you where these people are and how scared they truly are. Because we look how many Americans have woken up, and not just Americans, worldwide, have woken up to the fact of 9/11 as a complete fraud.
Right.
We know it was done by intergovernmental workings. You had a lot of people involved in government who truly believe that they're doing their job, they're doing the right job. But they've all been compartmentalized, not to understand the true nature of how governments work and how they destroy economies, how they keep people controlled under their system. But now that great awakening is starting to happen right now. Right. And I call us the 3%ers, Jim, but I'd like to see us to move to 5 and 10%. At that point, there's no stopping. And there's another great quote. I can't remember who said this, but it says, when an idea's time has come, there is no standing army on the planet that can stop it.
Right.
So, well, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what, I don't know have you seen the extraordinary video called The Quickening?
Yes.
Which talks about Carl Kalman's study of the Mayan calendar and so forth, that this is exactly what is predicted that would happen at this particular time. That everybody is such a boom, it's like the alarm clock went off and everybody is starting to wake up. This incredible social awakening that's happening.
Oh, I know. Have you seen, by the way, the new video that I don't know who posted it, but it is of David Icke's, and it's titled "The Lion Awakens."
No,
it's a comprehensive video. It's almost 5 hours long. I tried to watch most of it today, but it was just so long. Mm-hmm. I didn't have time to finish it, but it was incredible.
Yeah.
So and so many people like David Icke and yourself and Jay Widener and guys like Cliff High from the WebBots and George Green and Bob Dean and there's so many names to go on with David Wilcox and Graham Hancock and on it goes. Everybody's playing a major role in waking everybody up to the fact that we've all been had at one point or another, and there's no stopping it anymore. Right. And this is the part. There's no stopping it anymore. And it's like a freight train going down the track full blast, and they are going to be hit with 100 tons of steel.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that moment, that very moment, Jim, where all this information just explodes onto the population of the planet, and they go, I knew it was there. I knew it was real. I didn't want to believe, but now I know. See, and people like you and I and others like us, we've known a long, long time. And that's why we're touting this day after day after day.
Yeah, simple little video on YouTube that, we were talking about the German saucers and stuff, and they show this little laboratory experiment. They've got this little glass vial there, and at the bottom of it, they have like maybe a quarter inch or an eighth of an inch of mercury, and they electrify it. They put an electric charge to it, and by God, that mercury starts spinning like a little vortex. And I think, well, there it is, game over. That proves it right there. And it's so simple. It is ridiculously simple, and here they have proven, how you electrify mercury and it spins.
Right. I watched. Who was it? The head of, I think it was McDonnell Douglas or, I can't remember, but he was the head of the Department of Space Technology at the time, and I think David Sarita actually got to do an interview with him where he took basically a toroid of copper, twisted copper, with two leads, plugged it into the wall, and this thing floated right off the table. Right. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. It's, I think that there's inner workings of within this shadow group who really wants all this information to come out, and that's why they've allowed so many different leaks to come out from so many areas.
Well, that's the ultimate kicker. That when the elite itself starts to break up, that's when it's all over. When they can't maintain a solid, organized front anymore, and that front starts to break up, then their game is over. And it'll just fall like a house of cards.
Yeah, it's crumbling right now. I mean, with that Brzezinski speech that we were talking about earlier, I mean, that just puts the capstone on the pyramid, so to speak, Jim.
Yeah, speaking of the capstone, that's where you see that crack in the top of the Washington Monument now. It's like, that to me is the most symbolic thing of all. It's like, okay, you guys thought you were invincible. Well, you got a big fat crack in your little pyramid now. And that crack's going to get bigger and bigger, and then pretty soon it's like, it's game over.
And that, by the way, is no coincidence, if you ask me. There are no coincidences in life. Benjamin, I heard an interview with David Wilcox, who was interviewing Benjamin Fulford.
Yeah, oh my God, yes.
I found that extraordinary. I don't know, how valid that is because, it's coming from one source. It's not backed up by another, but I've always found Benjamin Fulford to be, pretty much credible.
Yes.
So I'm thinking to myself, okay, now if they're having this inner warring, which I can't prove or disprove, so I say, okay, take it for what it is.
Right.
But if it's true, then there is that inner fighting already taking place. That means the disruption's already happening all over.
Right, which is to say that the alleged earthquakes in Colorado and in Virginia, a day apart, were actually not really earthquakes, but somebody had got to their underground facility or something. Yeah, and I've heard that the earthquake in Virginia particularly did not register seismically like a normal earthquake.
Well, from what I understand, there's usually a P wave and an S wave, which stands for primary and secondary wave prior to the earthquake. Right. And I guess that didn't occur.
No.
Which I found out extremely odd in itself. But then again, Jim, I'm also a believer that we are going through massive earth changes now. Whether they're using that to their advantage is another question to be asked, but we just don't know.
Well, the other thing is that the proliferation of tectonic warfare. That's something that never gets talked about. But it's like you start to do a little research. Go look up the patents on the HARP technologies.
Oh, I have.
China has their Meridian project, and it's like everybody's playing around with tectonic weapons development now. It's like, how do you know what's natural earth changes now, or what's a tectonic pissing contest between the major powers?
Well, Nick Begich really brought that to light. Angels don't play this harp, and then they still don't play this harp. Right.
But the thing is, it's like most people tend to think, well, we're the only ones who have harp, and that's hogwash. Everybody's got harp, and the Chinese have, the Russians have it, and it's like this is a potential free for all here. So
I mean, what do you think the eventuality of it is? Okay, they all have harp. So I mean, what's their point? Is everybody going to try and attack everybody else with harp? I mean, that's pretty pointless unless they try and use it to eliminate the population of the planet.
It becomes ludicrous after a while. I mean, it's like a bunch of 5-year-olds out in the playground, and every one of them has a 357 Magnum, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay, little boys, let's grow up here. You're going to decimate the entire planet playing with weapons that you don't know what will end up happening with this stuff. And that's why Nikola Tesla, who first discovered this stuff a long, long time ago, was so deathly afraid of it. He says, you can destroy the entire planet by jerking around with these kind of technologies. And,
Yeah, well, he truly understood.
How many generals in the Defense Department have a firm grasp of that, right?
Yeah.
Boys and their toys.
Boys and their toys. That's what I see it as. It's nothing but more destruction and violence.
But that was, the beauty, and Brzezinski talked about this back in the 70s. The beauty of this kind of weaponry is that you can decimate a country with an earthquake or tidal wave and blame it on God. There's no political blowback on this, and that's what makes it doubly dangerous.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true, because you can't point a finger and say it was this or it was that. It's just an impossibility unless somebody comes out directly.
Blame it on Comedy Lennon, right?
Right.
Or blame it on Nibiru. Nibiru is perfect. An invisible star. Blame it on the invisible star. Yeah, they did it. It was the invisible star that did it, right? Give me a break.
Right. Well, Jim, before we run out of time, when's your next speaking engagement? Let everybody know.
I believe it's October 29th at the main library here in Tucson.
And who else is going to be with you?
It's just going to be me.
Oh!
Little old me, and it's free. I believe it's probably go up about 1:30 at the main library downtown. I think it's a Saturday, and we're just we do things. Paul appreciated how we're very low key here, very casual, and we have a really good group down here, and they're very lively, and you have great feedback discussions with these guys down here, and it's just, I'd like to get, I wish we could kind of cross-pollinate with Phoenix a little bit more, because, I'd like to share this more with the Phoenix audience too.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I always say the more the merrier, the bigger the crowd, the more information gets out without a question. Jim, give out your information, your website, your DVDs, so people can purchase them from your website.
Okay, for the DVD, I only have one complete DVD that's available through UFO TV, and that's the Aldebaran Mystery. You can get that directly from UFO TV video DVDs. And you can watch all of my my video essays on YouTube through UFO TV, or you can go to my website, which is jimnicholsufo.net, and I have a number of my video links on that site, or you can order my book directly from jimnicholsufoart.com.
And Jim, is your UFO art still available?
I believe through UFO, jimnicholsufoart.com has a link to where you can buy prints also.
That's excellent. I recommend everybody purchasing his artwork. I've seen it. It's really incredible, detailed work. I mean, the amount of time he puts into one piece. This is a no child's play drawing. These are serious pieces of artwork, and I found them extremely incredible.
So far, my most popular video on UFO TV is my Nibiru video, and actually, I just finished a Nibiru addendum. Hopefully that will be up, available to watch within the week here. So,
well, Jim, I want to get you on next month because I want to really talk in depth about Nibiru, the Destroyer, the Dark Star, call it what you will. There's so much disinfo about it and real information that needs to be disseminated in regards to what's taking place on the planet with Earth's changes and Nibiru.
Right.
I think it's extremely, extremely important.
Yeah, this year has been a real wake-up call for that, so we got to really pay attention to what's going on.
I agree. Jim, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show on such short notice. You're an incredible guest, a wonderful man, full of knowledge. You couldn't ask for a more incredible guy from the day I met you. Really, just awesome person, Jim. And
well, I hope you saw Bob Dean over the weekend, and I hope you made him feel guilty for not coming down to my lecture.
Actually, I tried to. He kind of laughed. But, like I said, one of these days I am going to try like heck to get him down there. It's just, it's hard for him because he's had so many illnesses and, he's down for days at a time when this happens to him. It breaks my heart because I love him. I truly love him. Like I said, I'm really biased as far as he's concerned. But I will try. I really will, Jim. But
well, if
again,
you can get a window of opportunity where he's up and at him, drag him along.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you again for being on the show. You have a wonderful evening. And look, I'll call you sometime next week because I want to get you on the show for next month because I definitely want to talk about Nibiru. Okay. There's tons of information. You take care of yourself. You have a wonderful week. This has been The Whole Agenda. I'm your host, Robert Pepino. And tomorrow night we have Bob Chapman from 8 to 9. Please come back and join us. We're going to have a lot of financial information for you. Everyone, take care. Have a wonderful evening.
Hello, fellow patriots. This is Big John Lipscomb, and I wanted to share with you my brand new magazine. It's called The Sovereign Life, and you can get a copy at thesovereignlifemagazine.com. If you can't spell sovereign, you probably have no interest in living